Hello and welcome to a GG Weekend Watcher. I'm delighted to be back in the hot seat after what has been a whirlwind at the Racing League for the past few weeks. But a big thank you to Dave, as ever, for holding the fort from the presenting role. Probably a bit too good a job, to be honest with you, Dave. I was half worried the job wasn't going to be here for me when I returned. But Dave is back with us, though, from a punditry role this time around, alongside Andrew Mount, as per. And we have a good show for you this weekend because it is the world's oldest classic, the St. Leger at Doncaster. As well as that, we still have plenty of other supporting races, group races, and some really competitive handicaps as well to go to war with. So we better crack on with the action. And we begin at Doncaster with their opener. This is the Group 2 Champagne Stakes for the 2-year-olds over 7 furlongs at 150. We have a short price favourite in here, though, Dave, Rosalian. So do you have a betting angle for us, or is it just a case of the favourite wins?
Favourite wins, no betting angle either. There is one at a price that I'll give a little bit of a mention to, and it is just purely from a price perspective. But yeah, good looking racing this week. We had 10 to go through last week. We only got the 6th this time round. I do just quickly at the top of the show need to give a congratulatory mention to Andrew because he outnapped me last week, and I can't believe it traded 1.14 in running and got beat because I had a couple of quid on it too. But never mind. This race, though, right? Rosalian is the favourite. Short price, deserves to be there. Richard Hannon often sends one to this race. Won it back-to-back in 19 and 20 with Threat and Chindit, respectively. There's been some good winners of this race in the past. Rosalian on debut beat just an 80s horse. That was gone good to firm, over 6 furlongs. But next time out was really impressive. Had a 103 and a 101 horse in behind. That win came on good ground and, like I say, was at 7 furlongs, so ticked boxes. Blue Point horses do tend to want it quicker than slower, I think, but it is important to remember that Big Evs did win on soft a couple of starts back. The ground at the moment is soft, but it is drying ground, so I can't see it being very slow. Last win came over 7 furlong, like I say, so nothing not to like. Priced accordingly, will just win. Mentioned a couple that are in the betting behind, though. This is where like a price differential comes in. Iberian probably has the same desire for ground. Don't think there's going to be any benefit to him if the ground was slower than like for a negative for Rosalian. So it's the same sort of thing there. There wasn't anything really to alter the difference between him and Mountain Bear on their last run. That was a bit strange considering how big the price are between the two of them. Mountain Bear got quite warm pre-race as well. But he's the same as Iberian and Rosalian. They all want it a bit quicker. So there's nothing to suggest that either of those two are going to beat Rosalian. The ratings just say this horse is well clear. It will win. But Mountain Bear is definitely overpriced. I think his price will contract a little bit. At 7 furlong is his trip. But I've waffled enough. Rosalian just wins.
Rosalian just wins, but Mountain Bear, though, perhaps a price that would interest you. 14 to 1. Say there was only, what was it, a neck to separate him and Iberian. Iberian 7 to 2 in here from Mountain Bear's penultimate start. 14 to 1 about him. But Rosalian just wins, quote unquote, then from Dave. Andrew, do you agree with that?
Yes, I think Rosalian wins. Very impressive in winning that listed contest at Ascot last time by 4 lengths from Al Musmak, who went on to win a Haydock listed contest next time out. I thought the interesting one for the forecast was Sunway, who overcame Greeners to win at odds of 13-2 on his debut at Sandown. And then next time out, when he bumped into Rosalian at Ascot, he was 5 to 2, whereas Rosalian was an 11 to 1 shot. So he was less than a quarter of the price of Rosalian. He stopped quickly. He was beaten by more than 15 lengths. And the fact that tongue tie goes on for the first time suggests there was a breathing issue that day. If the tongue tie fixes it, then maybe he can be the one to chase home the favourite. So I'll go Rosalian with a Rosalian Sunway forecast, computer straight forecast, or tote exactor, I should say.
Oh, nicely done. Cover both bases there. Sunway 16 to 1. And yeah, that's fascinating with the price difference on his last start in comparison to Rosalian. Now our 8 to 15 favourite, but both of the lads in agreement there that Rosalian is going to take all of the beating in our opener. Now we head to Chester for the listed Stand Cup Stakes for the 3-year-olds and over a mile 4 at 2:05. And it's another hot favourite here, Andrew. Blue Stocking at 5 to 6. But again, is there a way to play this race for you?
Yeah, this is fascinating because we've had a few Chester meetings this year where on softish ground you want to be wide and the inside rails perhaps not advantageous as it normally is. But at the last meeting, it was quite the opposite. You had 5 runner races where you'd have the front 2 in the betting coming out of stalls 4 and 5, and it would be any one of stalls 1, 2, and 3 would be winning. So the first thing I looked at was, hang on a minute, stall 6, the hold up horse, that's not ideal Chester material. Age-wise, people will probably glance through the last sort of 9 winners, because we didn't have this race last year, and sort of see only 2 3-year-olds and read some significance into that. But there isn't. If you go back the last 10 renewals, there have been 3 3-year-old winners, and the expected number of winners was only 2.4. So basically, there's no sort of statistical correlation about the age of previous winners of this race. More interesting though is freshness. Now, in the past 10 renewals, 7 horses have come into this race off a break of more than 3 months, break of more than 90 days to be accurate, and 4 of those won. 2 others finished 3rd, another one 4th. 2 of the 3rd places, I think, were both 11-1. So I did look at those who've been off the track for a while. Madara for Roger Varian, been off the track for 98 days, got a good record when fresh. And Al Quarim, I was going to say one of the outsiders, but now 13-2. Was a winner over, was it the Prix Royal Oak at Longchamp around about this time last year. Sort of clearly
close.
Clearly been saved for a for a winter soft ground campaign. Probably needs further, because that Longchamp race is about just short of 2 miles, mile 7.5, so a mile 4.5 round Chester. But the fact the money's come, after a break, will be quite significant. So I'll go Al Quarim here in the hope there's a bit more rain.
Okay, Al Kareem. It was the Qatar Pre-Chardonnay, which close enough.
I think he ran in the Royal Oak last time, didn't he? And then got beaten in that.
Al Kareem did. Oh, in the final start, yes, yeah.
Yeah, I know he had 2 runs at Longchamp.
Won that penultimate start at Longchamp, and then like I say, signed off with the 5th in the Pre-Royal Oak. Spot on. I was going to try and say it really quickly then, as you were talking, the name of the race that he actually won at Longchamp, and I was like, I can't quite get that pronunciation right, even if I give myself time to actually get it embedded, let alone to be able to do it off of the cuff. So different ways to play it then for Andrew. Dave, what were you thinking?
I thought this was pretty much as straightforward as the first race, to be honest with you. It is boring, but Blue Stocking takes a significant drop in class here. The conditions of this particular listed race is no horse could have won a pattern race, a Group 1 or a Group 2. She was half a length away from winning an Irish Oaks. She gets weight allowance, she gets sex allowance. She just comes out so far clear. So I think she wins. She handles all the ground. Like, it is just as simple as that, just wins. I'm going to give a little mention of one just to watch in the doldrums of the back. Don't really pay too much attention to where he finishes, unless there's some sort of like spring of enthusiasm in there. And because there's only 7 runners as well, there might be some firms playing 3 places, but at the moment there aren't. So there's no like betting angle on this. But L'Astronomy is very interesting, right? It was Gall did a couple of seasons, or last season, a couple of runs after just running behind Innse, and this is probably like recency me talking about this, but that horse was 2nd in last year's Irish Champion Stakes. He was also just ahead behind Eldar Alderov in that race, where it was like Innse had won, so we know what he went and did last week. So there's at least some potential for this horse. They've been running him in some really cheap pants races since they gelded him, and I'm thinking this race there'll be a fast pace for him to aim up, because he's been held up and then not been able to get there, things like that. However, when they used to win with this horse, they used to send him off, so I wonder whether those few runs have just been fitness, getting him used to the fact that he hasn't got his bit dangling. I don't know, but this race does have El Kareem, which Andrew's mentioned, potential pace angle in there, and Madara that Andrew gave a little loose mention to, another pace one. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they do with this Astronomy, essentially. If they go up with the pace, I think that'll be like an intensive run, but he's going to have to be vying for that with Al Kareem and Madara. But yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on him in the background, but Blue Stocking will definitely just win this.
Definitely just wins. I love the bullishness of Dave week on week. It's always music to my ears, but Blue Stocking 5-6 will win this. But a note then for L'Astronomy at 16-1, quite a big price in there as well. Now we certainly have a betting heat up next. This is the Portland handicap, a heritage handicap for 3-year-olds and over 5.5 furlongs at 225, 8 on the field. Dave, take it away.
I'm really keen on one in here, right? If people are able, I mean, you can do it on YouTube clips. There's a little snip thing at the bottom, so it makes it easy for you. People can go back a few runs ago when I was napping up Equilateral. saying about King's Lynn's just gone, won't win another race, all this sort of stuff. Well, King's Lynn is the one that I'm going for in here, right? I didn't think he was the same horse at the start of the season, but he ran in that Ascot race where I found something else. Equilateral didn't run, and then he's running another Ascot race after that when dropped back to 5 furlongs, started to show a little bit about him. He's now down to 104. This will be his first run trained but also owned by Andrew Baldwin, because the King got rid of him. And the fact that he stayed with Andrew Baldwin is like a little bit of an indication, I think, that they obviously the horse has got some ability. We know he has. He's a 100+ rated horse. Touched on that race where he was running over 5 furlongs at Ascot, and he was staying on strongly in that. He's had 2 runs over 5 furlongs, done exactly the same. All his career, he's been switching between 5 and 6 furlongs. Portland Handicap's 5.5 furlongs. It's been crying out for him. Not only is the trip ideal for him, right? This horse at Doncaster, his form reads 1, 2, 2, 1, 8. And that 8 came at the start of the season when he was rated 109, sent off 4-1 favourite for a listed race, and he was hampered right at the start, was never able to get into contention. So let's not forget, as much as this is a nice race, it's a Class 2 handicap. He's a 4-time winner from 25 starts. So for him to get 50% of those at this track, which is just over 5 runs, suggests this is essentially home turf. Oisin Murphy's back on board. He used to ride him when we thought this was a group prospect. I can only see that as a positive. Also, a little trivial one for you. He's drawn in trap. I was going to say trap 5. He's drawn in stall 5. The horse drawn in trap 5 won the race in 2021 and was 3rd in the race last year. So I cannot see any negatives. He's a general 12-1 poke. There's 6 paces up for grabs. King's Lynn is one I'm really, really keen on, and definitely wins the Portland.
And further bullishness. To be fair, I think you might have been probably pretty accurate with calling it trap for King's Lynn. Well, some may say anyway. I wouldn't like to comment, but King's Lynn, though, sporting different colours this time around. From stall 5, we'll still credit him with a stall for now. 12-1 about the ex-King's horse, King's Lynn. Andrew, he's been a bit of a character on this show week after week, or for many seasons now, hasn't he, King's Lynn? So Dave's going to keep the faith with him. Where are you looking?
I'm going to go for last year's winner. I say last year's winner. Passed the boat in second, promoted to first when the places with Chipstead were reversed, and that's Call Me Ginger, who's on a hat-trick after winning at Chester and Ascot recently. Got an incredible record in the month of September. 11 runs, 5 wins, 3 seconds. Just thrives at this time of year, like an autumn Mr. Wagyu. And although traditionally you want to come from off the pace over 5 furlongs at Ascot as he did last time, the pace pretty much held up in that race. The 2nd, 3rd and 4th were up there throughout, and I thought, oh no, they haven't gone quick enough for him here, and he still managed to quicken up and pull away. And I thought he'd run his usual solid race. Stall 4, from what we saw on the opening, couple of races at Doncaster on Thursday, I don't think it's going to be an issue. Call Me Ginger. Mackinar's run well here before, placed at York last time. I thought that one might be one for the place pot punters on the other side of the track coming out of stall 18. And I should mention Happy Romance, who I tipped for the Sprint Cup at Haydock last week, but was a non-runner. Really gutted that he didn't get in, because it was obvious they weren't going to run Spy Catcher because of the ground, and yet they waited, and then didn't. Happy Romance was first reserve, a good record at Haydock, and yet, and again, given how the stablemate should have been a ring ran as well, finishing 2nd to regional at 50-1. I thought Happy Romance would have run a massive race. The ground might be a little bit softer than ideal for her, but she's on the radar as well. But yeah, Call Me Ginger. The quicker they go, the better his chance.
The quicker they go, the better his chance. Call Me Ginger to go in again then in this race, and to bring up a hat-trick on the 7-day turnaround. Now, I liked one at a bigger price in here at 16-1. With he takes a little bit of explaining, a little bit of an extra bit of a chance, but that's Tease Spirit for Mia and her father Adrian Nichols. Now, this horse ran a solid race last time out, won 2nd in a Class 2 5 furlong handicap at Haydock, to be beaten 3/4 length by Russell, where he managed to overcome what was a less than ideal start. He was slowly away. He was hampered then very early on. It saw him end up towards the rear of the field then before he came home in good style. Now, that was admittedly his best run since a listed success at Tipperary over a year ago, but he's able to run off of the same mark here a week later, hopefully he can continue that form forwards here. And I quite liked his draw in 22, the highest of all. So I was hoping that that might just be favoured for T-Spirit, provided he backs up last time out and gets a better start as well. £7 off of his back, 16-1. Good enough for me. Now, again, we have a likeable betting heat in our next race. This is a 0 to 90 handicap for 4-year-olds and over 10 furlongs at 240 at Chester. 13-2 the field here with Sweet Reward heading the market. But Andrew, who did you like?
I'm going to go against the favourite Sweet Reward. There's a few you can make cases for here, and the one I'm going with is the biggest price of the lot. Number 10, Innse Gall for Ian Jardine. Horse with a good record at this time of year. An incredible record in August and September. 13 runs, 5 wins, 7 in the frame efforts, and an unplaced effort. That was last time out at York on the 26th of August behind Astro King in a hot class 2 handicap. And had to be switched, met trouble, that finishing 8th of the 14 runners when 33-1. Now, again, if you break down his runs, he does tend to do better in fields with about 10 or fewer runners, can meet trouble. So, stall 5, should get a good toe into the race. 25-1 seems too big. Belhaven, I'm sort of in danger of going off a cliff with. But I'm not totally convinced the step up to 10 furlongs will suit, but there's definitely another race in her. And Arthur's Realm, another one who tends to do his winning in small fields. I thought he had a squeak as well for Ed Dunlop. I mean, those are the 3 outsiders in the entire field. But I'll go Innse Gall as the win bet.
I was going to say, the 3 outsiders, you've just listed them in reverse order then, from biggest price to the smallest, which was only 12-1, and for Arthur's Realm, 16-1 Belhaven, but the biggest play then, 25-1 Innse Gall as the outsider of the field for Andrew in this Chester contest. Dave, who did you like?
I've got notes on a few of them, and it's all of them except for the 3 that Andrew's mentioned, and Southern Voyage.
Great.
If I say Southern Voyage, you've got to mention. So I'm the same as Andrew, right? I want to get away from Sweet Reward. That was a bog at Goodwood the last run, up £7 for it. He's won 6 times out of 32, ridden by Rob Hornby 16 times and won thrice. So I don't think the jockey makes any difference. I know people will say the switch back to Rob Hornby maybe looks like a positive, but not for me. I will, for the fact of saying it, this was a race where there was a few horses that didn't get declared. So the prices that are showing up, which you would have seen, Kate, that 13-2 is long gone. So for people watching it, he hasn't been smashed up from 13-2 into 7-2. He is a general 7-2 poke now. So don't look at that as market confidence on Sweet Reward. I'm really digging it into him this race, aren't I? So I did say about Southern Voyage, I didn't have a line for him. I did. It's his first run for a year, first run for Richard Farr. He could do anything, but you can't back him off the back of that. Box to box has Chester form and winning form. 88 looks about right, but I don't think there's loads of room in that mark. And there's going to be contention for the lead with him in the favourite. So I think that scuppers both their chances. Whisper's just outclassed here. First impression always seems to run his race. Course and distance winner. Last time out, could be out of his depth here, but like I say, does run his race. But the 2 that I liked, right, and I'm semi-annoyed they've both been declared because I like both these horses independently quite a lot. So the fact they're both running the race, I am going to be playing both of these. So it'll be I'm going to do point win on each of them. The first of those is Baryshnikov. He's 3 from 6 at the course, including a Class 2 handicap win off 91 at the start of last season, and he's now down to 84. So, 87. So £4 down. He was sent off. He's been sent off favourite a few times actually in similar races, and he's just been beaten all of those. He does really need a decent pace to aim at. The trainers and connections have made comment to that when he was beaten favourite before. I think he should get that here. The ground won't be as soft as his last 2 runs at the track. It'll be more similar to the time when he won at the start of last season. So that's another positive. He's a general 15-2 shot. I think he's got a great chance, and I think he will shorten up. So Baryshnikov's the first one. But the other horse that I wish they hadn't declared, so I could have got stuck into Baryshnikov, is Dark Pine. Another similar type. Only win on the turf came here, so not as prolific as Baryshnikov. But he was only beaten a net second in May. He'll want to come off the pace as well. So the angle with both of these is the same. I think there'd be enough pace play out that both of these are going to come through with a flourish. Down £4 this season, the same as the other one that I've mentioned. And he was he was a length ahead of Baryshnikov when they raced last here. And that was in the race where the trainer's representative said for Baryshnikov he could have done with a faster pace to aim at. The same would have been true for Dark Pine. So I'm back in both of those. Baryshnikov, said it for about the 40th time, and Dark Pine.
When it's a name as cool as that, you can say it over and over. Barishnikov and Dark Pine. So course and distance wins to both of their names, hoping to go that again. I mean, if you get the dead heat out of both of them, then ideal. But yeah, they have both been declared, much to Dave's displeasure / delight. Right, we have the 7 furlong specialists to the 4 in our next race. This is the Group 2 Park 6 at 3 o'clock back at Doncaster over 7 furlongs. Spycatcher heads the way here. But Dave, who did you like in this 7 furlong contest?
I think overall that this is a really, really, really good race. Like, I think it's one of those that you could probably look at it a few times and come out of maybe different decisions on it. I feel like I've kind of whittled it down, and then the market has helped me in this instance as well now, because you can obviously look at a race, give yourself a chance for each of the runners, but it's a percentage chance that you think they're going to have, and then after the market's been formed or reformed, you can see if you can dig in a bit of value. So Spycatcher for me does need it slower than good. Twice a non-runner at Haydock on good ground. And you'd think good ground at Haydock's basically softer for us because it's always just wet there, isn't it? Best form is at 6 furlong, but this trip is no issue. But then if you go back to his Ascot 4th in a handicap back in May, that wouldn't be good enough for me to say that he should be favourite like the bookies have made him. But he's like Racing Post ratings and figures recently are good enough to suggest that he's right at the top of the tree. Audience, worst run in his last 4 came on good to soft, so the ground's a little bit of a worry, but can't be as bad as Goodwood was that day. That was his lowest RPR this season, so if we just ignore that one, he's had, since he's been gelded and they put the hood on, he's got 113, 116 and 118, so there isn't much between him and Spycatcher. Sandrine was ahead behind Audience at York. That was a first-time visor, and that's been her best run since last summer when she was 3rd in the same race, and then she beat Kinross the time before that. 2 runs this late in the year, though, were her worst RPRs compared to the previous few runs, so tempers enthusiasm with Sandrine. Beagles is a handicapper, as far as I'm concerned. Did post that race rating of 113 at Newmarket. Likes eating the ground, but this is much tougher. Pogo and Jumbie can have literally exact same comment for both of them. They want it fast, and they've got a lot to make up with the other market rivals from their run at York. So for me, it is between Audience and Spycatcher. I don't have much between them on figures. A lot of this is going to come down to the ground. We're recording this on Thursday, as everyone will know. The race obviously goes off on Saturday. As it stands, the bookies have got Spycatcher in at 13-8, general 6-4 everywhere, and Audience is a 3-1 poke. If the ground is good to soft or slower, I think Spycatcher probably will win. If it's, say, good and good to soft in places, or it's good to soft but maybe riding a little bit quicker, I think Audience will win. I think there's that much in between them, not much, like a paper's width. So at the prices, 3-1 Audience would be my selection, but it's like a fascinating race. These are the sort of ones that you have a bet of your mate in the pubs over a couple of beers or something rather than sticking some cash on, I reckon. But Audience, I reckon, at the prices has got a chance.
You couldn't have basically burrowed into my brain with this race like any more and just literally said what I thought about this race when going through it, where I just was concerned about the ground being on the softer side for Audience. Sandrine then with the form tailing off. Biggles, I love him, 7 furlong specialist, but in handicap company in comparison. And Jumbie and Pogo, like I say, not going to get the quick conditions and have not been seen in the best of order in those latest few starts. So again, totally between them, like the price of Audience. But then if it does quicken up, I'm basically just hoping it's not going to be as soft as we currently think at Doncaster, because that 3-1 does look very, very tempting. But Spycatcher with conditions to suit. But yeah, literally, Dave and I are on the same wavelength. Andrew, you're on a totally different wavelength than in the background during Dave's preview of that race. Phyllis, what just happened? I can't see a screen.
I was just watching Room Service win the sales race at Doncaster. Wanted to tipped in the race for GG, so that was handy. Yeah, just going back to the ground, because they had 30 mil this week and they called it soft, proper soft. TV's Ken Peterson spoke to Billy Lockdown after the first race, and he said, yeah, it's kind of like it's proper sort of wet, deep, soft ground. The time suggested it was soft. There is a little bit more rain forecast, although Doncaster does sort of dry up fairly quickly, and I think it's going to be dry on Friday. I think sort of working on the assumption that it's going to dry out sufficiently for a lot of the good ground horses come Saturday might not be the way to go. So it is tricky in that respect. If it's like genuinely soft ground, I'd be just say a Spycatcher over Biggles. be against Audience and Sondrine, who both seem to be happier on good to firm going. Jumbie and Pogo I didn't particularly like, but I'll go with Biggles. He was shot down in flames when the favourite for the international stakes at Ascot last time. Ground was too quick for him that day. He's got some fantastic form on good to soft and soft going. Slight concern that he can race keenly, although there is a fair bit of pace in this race because from Pogo, from Sondrine, from Spycatcher. So hopefully even in the small field he'll get a bit of cover, and maybe around about 6 to 1. He's the bet, but don't have more than £1,000 on, because it's a tricky race.
I'll try not to. I'll try to hold myself back from that. But because at 6 to 1, the 7 furlong specialist back over the 7 furlongs, but to prove himself in group company, and very well done, Mr. Mount, as well, for your winning tip there. You're going to have to, this is how I get my updates during the podcast, because I can't see a screen. So I just have to watch Andrew's reactions to everything in the background to try and guess what's actually going on as we record on Thursday afternoon. Right. Now we have the big one. It is the Group 1 St. Ledger, the world's oldest classic for the 3-year-olds, over 1 mile, 6.5 furlongs. This comes up at 3:35 at Doncaster, and it's been fascinating already to see how the betting has been shaping throughout the morning on Thursday morning since declarations, because Frankie Dettori has elected to ride a rest. We're guessing because of the ground, and as Andrew just said, with plenty of rain about at Doncaster and with the soft conditions at the minute, that has seen his price shorten from 5 to 1 to 100 to 30 now as we record. But both the former market principals, Continuous and Gregory, are now 4 to 1 apiece. So Andrew, what do we do with the race now?
Yeah, you look at the betting for this, it looks like a sort of low-grade all-weather handicap. The favourite 130, the next 2 at 4 to 1, and a 5 to 1 shot. It's really open. Frankie Dettori has thrown a spanner in the works by switching from Gregory to a rest because Naposaurus Rex for Dave last time when winning comfortably and well backed at Newbury. Just kept grinding it out from the front. Generally speaking, I do not like front runners at Doncaster on the round course. I know when the ground's on the soft side, it can be a little bit easier to make the running, but it's still not easy as such. And I'm just a little bit concerned that a rest going off in front will be vulnerable late on, and I can leave him alone at 130. Continuous, I tipped up for the York race, and because it was given a very intelligent ride by Ryan Moore, who just if you could read his facial expression, he was like, "What the flippin' heck you doing, you lot?" As Frankie Dettori goes off at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and he just takes a pull. And then the race was over after about 2 furlongs, wasn't it? Because it was all about track position. So although Continuous won impressively, it was he was only 1 of 2 with a chance in the race because they went stupid up front. Gregory, I'm not massively keen on. Desert Hero, yes, he's got the running style. Wouldn't put you off that one. Middle Earth, sort of up in grade after the York winning, very different ground. And chess pieces, every time he's lost, he's bounced back to win next time out. He can make the running, but James Doyle generally likes to sort of come from a little bit further back. At the prices, I'll just go for chess piece, but he'll like the ground. Hopefully he won't sort of get involved on the front end. But I mean, you look at it as well, you've got half the field trained by Aidan O'Brien. You've got horses are obviously in there, or you'd suspect in there as pacemakers, and you think they're just going to try and tee it up for Continuous as happened at York. So if Frankie Dettori's aim is to make the running on a rest, he's not going to get left alone in front by the Ballydoyle contingent. You wouldn't have thought. So I'm just Desert Hero each way at 5 to 1. Probably going to get the race run to suit and stay on into a place. But the prices, I'll just go chess piece in the hope that James Doyle has them a little bit further back than I do than previously. So
12 to 1 at chess piece, as long as he doesn't get involved up with the pace. And yeah, it feels like we're going back to a vintage era from Ballydoyle, Dave, where we saw it last weekend with August Rodin in Leopardstown, where they set their stall out with the horse on the front end to give him the lovely toe into the race, called a few of the jockeys in behind, napping. Some people have commented since then in the Irish Champion Stakes, and now they're sending out these 3 horses, Tower of London, Alexandropolis and Denmark in here as well, all big prices, but perhaps to set it up for Continuous. So we're going old school.
Yeah, but you're both very knowledgeable people, and unfortunately you both keep making the same mistake. You both said that the pacemakers are in the race to set it up for continuous, and they're not. They are there to set it up for the what? Like it's mental, but I'm going to have a good bet on this. They're setting it up for Denmark. The horse when he ran last week.
Dogmark.
Yeah, but
I was going to say, you know,
in
you're doing impressions of his head carriage here.
Yeah, they'll need to take that. They'll need to put a neck brace on him to keep his head in the right direction.
Dogma.
But he's not. He doesn't want to be in front at the line or any part.
At any stage.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's not in there as a pacemaker. He's there to like whether he finishes third or second. Like he's 100%. This horse has more ability than he's shown. That last run, like everyone that would like as well. Anyone that's ever watched a horse run before in their life could see he was not putting it all in, and he still came there cantering, and he still looked like an okay horse. He actually got a Racing Post rating for that effort of 111, which isn't too far off what these guys have done. When you look at Arrest, for example, his was 117, 114, and 115. So he's only a little bit off that. And we just don't know how much ability Denmark's got. So I am going to make a case for him. He was supposed to be at the end. It was supposed to be a surprise argument, but I do quite like him. Now, we've like Middle-earth, I obviously napped him. I obviously napped Arrest when he won last time. All the naps are coming in. Arrest, when we talked about him before, and the reason I napped him before was, like, A, it was a price thing, but I did think he'd win the race. But let's not forget, it was a Group 3 at Newbury in a race where there was lots of horses where you could say, don't actually think they're that good. So this is back to a Group 1, regardless of the fact there'll be question marks around a few horses. And like we say, Frankie was going to ride Gregory just because there's a little bit more rain. He's going for a rest. And Frankie might not be making the best decisions these days. Now it's his last season. I know he wants to get wins. But I talked about Arrest. The connections have said before, right, that it's not necessarily the ground that's the problem. It's the conventional track. And that's why I was happy to put the line through Ascot. Sometimes it can take a horse to run there. That's what they said for Epsom. But they did say on an unconventional track, he might need some ease in the ground. Doncaster's as easy as you'd want to ride, I think. Like Andy said, you might not want to be on the front of the pace. He did that at Newbury, was able to bully his way in that race, but they're not going to let him do that in here. So that scares me a little bit for Arrest, although I do think he is the right favourite. But I can't be backing him at the price. Stablemate Gregory was just, I can't believe the run last time, just how quick he went off and sprang. And he may have been caught out a little bit by the quicker ground, but I don't know. He's only had 4 starts and he maybe lacks a little bit of experience.
You'd have thought he'd needed that, being by Golden Horn, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, that's it. But I don't know whether it, like, they went real quick, didn't they? And I wonder if the ground was just so quick that allowed him to run quicker than he needed to. It's like a kid when you run too fast and you can't help yourself from falling over. Maybe the slower ground will slow him up a little bit, and that might help. But he hasn't got enough experience for me. And the fact that Frankie jumped off, like, he might get it wrong, but I don't think he'll win. Continuous is the hardest one for me to really make a case for, given the fact that they pulled him out at the Curragh on yielding ground. And obviously that win that he had the last day, as much as Gregory ruined himself by running quick, was on good to firm. This is going to be at least good to soft, so it'll be at least the Irish yielding. So I think that needs to be considered for continuous. And they're taking up a lot of the market. And like we say, it looks like they're setting up the race for him, but they're not. They're setting it up for Denmark. He's mental as well, right? Because he's £4 better off with Middle-earth. He's a 50-1 poke. Middle-earth's like an 8-1 poke. He definitely is a rogue. We all know that. But we're pretty confident, right? If this horse could put it all together, he's much better than his current mark. I think he's rated 104. That RPO was 111. Don't think he has as much to find as everyone suggests he might have. So unless this run's come too soon, Denmark will definitely be in the places. And I've said this before and I'll say it forever in the rest of my life. Whenever I back a horse each way, I genuinely think they've got a chance of winning. So it would not be the biggest shock to me this weekend if Denmark actually decided to go, do you know what? I'm running against some proper horses now. He sees Frankie and thinks, no, not today, Frankie, and actually puts his head down. One of these days he'll do it, and it could just be this Saturday. So at 50-1, Denmark probably could win the St. Leger. There, I've said it.
Clip that up, because if this happens, then fair play to you, Dave. I thought you were just going to leave that sentence there when you said Denmark, he's mental, but then you carried on anyway, and I thought, no, you don't need any more of that sentence. That's fine. Just cut it there. Yeah, Danny Toto can perform a lobotomy halfway around as well. Doncaster's track, then even better for Denmark, but fair play to you. We love angles like that completely.
And I know from past experience that there's no upside to poo-pooing somebody's 50-1 selection. If Denmark was 8-1, I'd say you're insane. But yeah, when you're looking at 10-1 for a place, best of luck to you. I hope he's in the 3.
For sure. Every horse has its price, and the 50-1 outsider.
Just don't back him
certainly
even in running when he's cruising.
I know that's the thing. That's the thing, though. But none of us would dispute that he has ability. Like he clearly does. He's just got an absolute mind of his own. But 50-1 the outsider, Denmark could well have his pacemakers teed up then for him in here. I think at this stage I've been going around the houses with this, but I think I'm just going to have to stick put with Gregory and hope that he copes with the softer conditions. I am concerned about that. As you both said, Frankie Dettori has thrown an absolute spanner into the works for this race by choosing a rest. But listening to a few interviews there this morning, I do get the impression he was completely 50-50 toying with it. And a rest is the flashier workhorse at home. And so I think he's gone with a rest on those two bases more so than anything. But for me, Gregory is the horse with the most ability. I'm getting a slightly bigger price about him. Not as big a price as I could have got in the initial aftermath of the Great Voltager. I feel like traders just went, they went a bit insane with that. That was quickly rectified though. So Gregory for me, the horse with the most ability. Hopefully Frankie's chosen wrong and Kieran Schumacher will pick up the St. Ledger. Right, that's everything from our scheduled races. Andrew, though, you have something from somewhere else for us.
Yeah, just one horse in the 520 at Doncaster, the last race on Saturday, La Trinidad, who was a big eye catcher in the Clipper handicap at York last time. He finished 9th of the 19 runners at 40-1. He went out to about 60 or 80, 66 or 80-1. I've got to back him each way, even though he's got a terrible draw in stall 20. And so I'm glued to him watching him. He travelled like an absolute dream, but then got no sort of run and only got beaten 4 lengths. He's had 3 runs at Doncaster before, 2 wins and a 4th. And, strong pace. Ground wise, I mean, that York run came on good to firm, but he has got plenty of, sort of place form on soft and heavy going. If it does dry out, sort of good to soft tacky, shouldn't be an issue. Hopefully the go at the clappers and La Trinidad can get in the frame.
The Trinidad in the 520 at Doncaster. Right, Dave, your nap please for the weekend.
It's hard. I lost my status of naps last week, didn't I? But I'm not going to be a wuss and go for shorties just for the sake of trying to get him in. I think there's a few that I can make a bit of a case for strongly, but I do really believe that Lynn will win the Portland. I think there's no chance that the horse is outside the frame. So at 12-1, it's a bit of an each way nap, but Lynn would be my nap in the Portland.
Oh, Lynn as a nap, fair play. And Andrew, I know Dave's going with all the rogues this weekend. It's fantastic. Andrew, your nap, please.
I was tempted by Call Me Ginger to have a nap off with Dave there in the Portland, but I'll go with Innse Gall in the 240 at Chester, 25-1. Looks good value each way. So in the frame, 12 of his 13 starts in September and August.
Okay, good stats again there. And I genuinely have no idea what to nap. This is a nightmare of a weekend to pin your colours to the mast for one horse, I feel, because like I say, we've got those shorties earlier on. Spycatcher, I'm still just not sure of the ground then exactly how it's going to play out. So I'm just going to go then with Gregory in the St. Ledger and hope that his ability can come to the fore. Really convincing nap, as you can tell. Right, that is everything from us on this week's show. A big thank you to Dave and to Andrew for all of their hard work as per usual. Big thank you to you for watching. We'll be back next week with more previews of the weekend action.